From its beautiful lakes, top-rated ski resorts, and endless wineries, it's no wonder Kelowna has become one of BC's fastest-growing real estate markets. With over 200,000 people, Kelowna has twice the population of Nanaimo, Kamloops, or Prince George, as the second largest BC city outside of the Lower Mainland. Having been born and raised in the Okanagan, we have TJ Dumonceaux joining us today to talk about the Kelowna real estate market and the investment strategies he's focusing on. So as mentioned, Kelowna is a rapidly growing city. And why are people moving or interested in the Okanagan? What are some of the major economic drivers that you're seeing?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate taking the time. So some of our big market drivers, definitely our healthcare sector, tech. We're seeing a lot of, the big players getting into Kelowna marketplace, like even looking at the education sector. With UBCO, they're putting hundreds of millions of dollars actually here locally, looking to double their student base by 2040. Currently, they sit around just over 9,000 students. They're looking to get up to 18,000, somewhere around 20,000 with faculty. So they're actually just slated the highest building in town, which will be 45 stories. So when we see all these big groups, another one I want to touch on too, Cactus, Earls, Joey's, and most recently King Taps, which is owned by the Fuller family as well. They went forfeited going to Vancouver, Victoria, these bigger market centers, and diving right into Kelowna with their second location. So, these companies, these groups have teams put together to try and find viable marketplaces to, start these businesses or companies or what have it. So when people start to see that money kind of being deployed into our marketplace, it's easy for them to kind of join on and invest their money here as well.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how the landscape has changed, not only from a restaurant perspective. You think of the Earls on top there in Kelowna, and now you mentioned the Cactus Club and the King Taps, and now to see a group like UBCO building a skyscraper in the middle of downtown Kelowna, the landscape has changed dramatically. And you mentioned some of the different industries there. You've got healthcare, you've got tech. Who are the primary buyers in this marketplace? Are you finding there are people that are migrating from other parts of BC? Is it Alberta? Are you dealing with real estate investors? Who are you mostly working with, and who are you seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah. So for our group personally, we do deal with a lot of investors, and we were looking back just trying to answer this question and seeing who our buyer is and where they're coming from. And what we noticed is a lot from Lower Mainland and from out east in that Toronto area. I actually pulled the stats just from our local real estate board just to kind of give you a better overall perception. So like people repurchasing within our local boundaries is about 55%. Lower Mainland equates for about 25, Alberta 8.2, and then Eastern Canada about 4.7. So that's the actual stats from, like I say, OMREB, which is our local real estate board. But for our group, we are working with a lot from specifically Lower Mainland and then out east in that Toronto area. What I found, sorry to cut you off, I was gonna say what I found even more interesting than where people were coming from was the type of buyer. So these are April stats, it's the most up to date they had, but 18% were first time buyers, revenue property or investor was 13%, move up was 14%, and then basically a lateral move or similar property type was about 20%. So it was interesting to see the amount of investment purchases as well. And even when I looked back to February, it was up to about 22%. So we're seeing big amounts of capital being deployed, in the investment space here.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of leading into my next question, coming off a record year in BC real estate and a lot of talk about the rising interest rates, how have those current rising interest rates affected the market there in Kelowna?
Yeah, I think after seeing such low interest rates and seeing investors just coming in unconditional, scooping properties up left, right, and center, I truly think this is a good thing, especially for those first-time buyers or people who just want to get back to essentially normal real estate. Having subjects, your agent actually being able to negotiate on your behalf and not, what does the seller want? Okay, we'll give them everything and more, right? So I think it's definitely peeled back. Our inventory has gone up quite a bit. And even to put that into perspective, some stats I had was back in February, our absorption rate or months of inventory, essentially just how long it would take for everything we had listed to sell, was sub 2%, 2 months of inventory. And now we're up to over 7. And that's on the single family space. So anything under 6 typically geared towards a seller's market, 6 months balanced, anything over that turning to that buyer's market. So I think it's really good for buyers. Like I say, especially first-time buyers, it is stretching their affordability, but it's allowing them to just take a step back and have more confidence in the process and not be so rushed. Because it was extremely challenging working with first-time buyers last couple of years, really deflating, and just it just made everything more difficult, honestly. So yes, it's definitely slowed down our sales numbers, but when we saw, supply and demand, we had a huge demand and we didn't have enough supply. So prices then put pressure on upward pricing. And now we're starting to see, we honestly still have a very large demand, but inventory has just gone up threefold.
It was really interesting breakdown that you mentioned there about the different, I guess, segments of buyers, from first-time home buyers to investors to upsizers, to move across, and kind of the, I guess, the diversity and the kind of the equal blendness of all those buyers. It's not really heavily weighted towards just investors or just first-time buyers. It seems like a quite active, balanced market in that purchaser base. And you touched on single-family homes and the increase in inventory. And as your purchasing power has decreased, your options have increased, and your ability to tie something up, do a little bit more due diligence, get financing in place, those options are now available. So kind of the purchasing, the way you purchase has changed. So what are you seeing, in condos and townhomes? You mentioned single family homes, the inventory's increased. What are you seeing on that side of things?
Absolutely. Condos and townhomes, a little bit of the same, but because, like you mentioned, with the higher interest rates, it does squeeze people's purchasing power. So the bottom end of the market is typically always what turns over the most. So right now, townhomes, I believe, we're just under 4 months of inventory. And then condos, it's the same, I think 3.7-ish. So those are still geared towards that seller market where you are still seeing, for the right product, priced well, potentially multiple offers. But I think a big thing, if people can, to get into that single family space, especially in Kelowna, just to acquire land, right? They're not making any more of it. Kelowna only has so far that we can push out. In our official community plan that was just put forth for 2040, or the OCP, the city of Kelowna's big goal is to densify, to go up rather than to go out. And as they do that, they need land to build on. So really trying to help people see the value in trying to get plugged into single family. It's not going to be sexy, especially if it's your first place. You're going to have to roll up your sleeves and do a little bit of work. But I think the long term of it is just, it's hard to equate when you look at townhomes and condos, because there's just a lot of that going up here currently.
Yeah, a lot of development being had, and there's something to say about owning that land, owning that piece of home, especially in such a beautiful place like Kelowna. And with a lot of these new pre-sale condos coming to town, do you believe this will help add product to the market that it needs, or do you think there might be a chance of overbuilding?
Yeah, I think we were undersupplied for quite some time, so I definitely think it's a really good thing. Some of the numbers are skewed because we do have a lot of purpose-built rental buildings going up as well. So not all of the new infrastructure that you see, or buildings or high rises, are all geared towards resale. There are quite a few purpose-built rentals. Our vacancy rate has been sub 2% in terms of rentals for the last couple of years now. So I think that the supply, we really need it. I think with building codes and the step codes that BC Housing is putting forth, makes it more challenging for people to build and developers. And I think my concern isn't more towards the supply, it's more towards our current infrastructure. Can we actually handle all these high rises, our roadways, our transportation, all of that stuff? I think we're seeing huge growth in the development, but we're not seeing huge growth in terms of infrastructure to support it. So that's more where my concern would be.
Just drive through downtown Vancouver. No shortage of road construction and infrastructure happening there. So careful what you wish for.
We need it, man. Like, to get over the bridge into Kelowna. I live over in West K right now, West Kelowna, and it takes at 1 p.m. on an afternoon, it can take me 45 minutes, and I live 6 minutes from the bridge. So our highway or roadway goes right through our downtown core, which definitely isn't sustainable with the amount of growth that we're seeing here.
And on that point there, on the pre-sale side of things, you've had the One Water Street, you've had the Caban project, you've got Aqua, you've got these big pre-sale developments coming into town. Do you get excited about any of these? Are these something that you take to your clients? Is this something that you've purchased? What are your thoughts on some of these pre-sale projects from kind of your standpoint and your clients as well?
Yeah, we're definitely doing a lot of stuff in the pre-sale space. I think it's great. There's some very cool, unique developments coming to Kelowna. I think most notably for me, being born and raised here, is what I'm most excited for is Aqua. It's just really bringing that Vancouver, that Toronto vibe to Kelowna, which I think it's going to be an unparalleled development. They've got a marina, they've got world-class amenities, 3 towers. It's directly on the lakefront, so I'm super excited for that one as well. They've got the flexibility with the short-term rental in phase 1, and then 2 and 3's got the 7-day minimum because they're trying to get more of an end user there. So excited for that one. And then I think Water Street by the Park is another one I'm pretty excited for. That's a California developer coming into Kelowna with like next level amenities, really harnessing that lifestyle component. We're talking golf simulators, yoga studios, like everything. So I think that one's going to be pretty cool too, right in the downtown core. And it will be the highest building, I believe. But once UBCO kind of puts their landmark in the ground, that'll be gone.
And from a price point perspective, what can people expect on those type of deals? Like from a launch perspective, what are you seeing on a price per square foot on say Aqua?
Aqua's definitely north of $1,000 a square foot. Even some of the phase 2 and 3, I think, was in and around that 1,400 per square foot. So much higher than what we're typical or used to seeing here. But I think these groups are looking 5 years into the future as to, once these things are built out, the cost of concrete materials. Like Mission Group is a local renowned developer, and one of the good things with them is when you buy into that development, they're not going to come back and ask you for more money, so they do buffer that in as well. So yeah, you're paying a little bit more in terms of a price per square foot, but to get into a development like that and to be working with a very renowned local developer, I think there's something to be said about that, especially when you do hear horror stories of developers coming back and asking for more cash right now. Concrete's going up and there could be a shortage coming. Then you got wood pricing, all the rest of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, with those amenities, Aqua you mentioned there, short-term rentals being available right on the water, it seems like definitely a desirable place for people to move to in town, or people looking for an investment property. And Airbnb, as touched on, has become a very popular ownership strategy. Do you help your clients find these types of properties? And if so, what type of tips are you providing them?
Yeah, absolutely, we do. Airbnb has been quite the buzzword for the last few years, especially locally here. Trying to do it out of their bedroom or their house, their basement suite or whatever may have it. It's like one of the first questions we get asked, even on the residential, like single family home space, is like, can we Airbnb the basement suite? So we're quite in tune with the rules and regulations around that. And my girlfriend's got one, my mom's got one, and a bunch of my buddies. So we definitely help people with them. I think we really try and take a step back and understand what their goals are with the property though, because to be true, like Airbnb is not for everybody. Everybody thinks it's pretty easy, it's sexy, it's a lot of work. I mean, some of the things people don't take into consideration is management fees. You could be in Kelowna locally anywhere from 30 to 40% just on management. Then you got Airbnb's fee, right? So there's and then the speculation tax. Someone has to reside in the property for 6 months or you're subject to spec tax, which that's one that everybody kind of forgets to touch on, but that can really skew your numbers on a cash flow perspective if you're analyzing it out. So we definitely work with clients on them, but we really want to harness what their goals are and make sure they're aware of the downsides, but we also highlight all the upsides, right? You're not stuck into a fixed term tenancy. And then 3 years later, you're trying to up the rent, but you're, kind of handcuffed by the tenancy board, right? Then one of the biggest ones for me is getting eyes on the property every, couple weeks, where wear and tear and maintenance is going to get dealt with. Like I've got a few rental properties and one was the water line behind the fridge was leaking and there was a small water spot on the ceiling, but my tenant didn't tell me for months and months. Whereas if it was an Airbnb, I would have saw it right away, dealt with it, fixed, versus I had a much larger problem on my hands because I wasn't able to get in there. So the flexibility with, fluctuating your rents, your nightly rents, getting in there and being able to have eyes on the property, I think are two, really good points about it. But we also do highlight the other side of it as well.
Those are great points, and it's nice hearing your perspective from a firsthand experience. Your partner's doing it, your mom's doing it, and you help your clients do it, and then outlining that, saying, hey, here's the pros, but also a little more wear and tear on the property. You're gonna have to manage it. So here are the expectations on the other side of the coin. So Great synopsis there. Switching gears here a little bit. Me and Austin grew up going to the Okanagan Hockey School up there in Penticton, playing hockey up there in the summertime. I know that you were a hockey player growing up there in the Okanagan. You ended up playing college there in Boston. How come you didn't stay out east? How did you find yourself back in Kelowna and back in the world of real estate after a hockey career?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things was I realized I didn't want to be caught at a desk all day. I was in the finance and accounting route going down that. And I'm a very outgoing person. I like to get in front of people face to face, belly to belly, kind of more old school, I guess. So I realized sitting in a cubicle definitely wasn't going to fit the mold for me. Growing up here, my dad had a heating and air conditioning company. So construction was always in my background. We moved 16 times growing up because he was always flipping properties on the side as well. So I always say I feel like real estate's been in my blood since I can remember, working on the back of his truck. And when I'd come home from playing hockey, wherever I was, I'd work some sort of construction job in the summer just to get an understanding of the different areas of real estate. So it was a pretty seamless transition for me. When I left Boston, I went to school in Calgary for a year, but it was in economics. Again, not something that fit the mold for me. So went up to the rigs for a couple of years, learned what hard work was, and saved some money to get my first investment property here, and haven't looked back since.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. I think all three of us have a bit of real estate in our backgrounds, family members, fathers working in real estate, all of us a little bit of hockey background as well. So, none of us cut out for the cubicle job. And I think the flexibility and interacting with people, especially interviews like this, it's what we all really love to do. So it's great to hear. And you and your business partner started JT and Steph Real Estate Group, which is now one of the top real estate groups there in Kelowna. With a hockey background, how has it been working as a team? Have you enjoyed that aspect?
Yeah, it's been quite seamless. Steph also my business partner Steph comes from an athletic background. She was soccer where I was into hockey. So very similar personality types as well. Just an unparalleled work ethic, always trying to strive for more to be the best you can be. A little bit crazy at times. We still do get up about 5:30, go to the gym, start our days quite early, but it's been awesome. I really lucked out having such a good business partner in Steph, and someone who, she's a little bit older than I am, so she's been in the business longer, and someone who is an active real estate investor and practices what she preaches as well. So I've learned a ton from her and with her, and super excited to be on this journey with her.
Yeah, and I can attest to the early mornings. I follow you there on social media, and sometimes I think it was 75-day challenge hard or something along those lines. I didn't quite get it. Middle of winter with jackets on in the middle of the snow. It was quite impressive. So good on you.
Nothing worse than waking up at even 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, relatively early, and seeing some guys already been up for 2 hours, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm behind you.
That was a nuts challenge. It was pretty cool though. Yeah, we were a little bit bonkers throughout that for sure.
Yeah, those are cool though. The competition as well, and the tracking of it, I think keeps people very incentivized. We were chatting a little bit earlier before we got on here about your investments. You mentioned your girlfriend had purchased a pre-sale. You'd purchased a duplex that you're going to be doing some work to. Kind of give us an idea of your investing strategy and what you guys are out there looking for right now.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm always big in land. So with land as well, I'm always looking for somewhere I can add value. I'm looking for something that not everybody else is looking for, so to speak. Something that I can go into, maybe put a basement suite into, maybe I can change the exterior, redo a kitchen, something like that. I was a big into the BRRRR strategy. So buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. That was the first property I bought. That was what I went through. And that was how I was able to acquire my next property. And we just purchased, my girlfriend and I just purchased another one that we're doing the same thing with, taking a possession at the end of the month here and doing a full reno to that as well. So definitely something that I can add value to. Multiple doors, definitely ideal for me. Just looking for that long-term cash flow to replace the income.
Yeah, good for you. And it's always, you always hear get into real estate young, but right now a lot of the current prices, it can be a bit daunting for first-time investors or young people trying to get into the market. For someone who's looking to buy their first home or investment property, what's one piece of advice that you would give to them?
Don't reinvent the wheel. There's been many people who have gone ahead before you and done what you're looking to do. I think it's all about aligning yourself with people who have done what you're looking to do. I know locally there's so many realtors that sell investment real estate or, preach it, but they don't own any of it. So they really don't understand how it works. And I really think aligning yourself with someone who knows what it feels like to have to send an eviction notice, or to have a tenant not pay rent, or how to source a tenant, or what about trades? You got to, something went wrong. Like, really, like I say, getting mentorship from someone who's been there and done that, I think, is extremely important, and not just working with your buddy because he's a realtor. Although that can be great, you might have a good experience, you're probably not getting the best advice and overlook and, access to trades or service providers that you could have with someone who is actively doing what you're looking to do. Because it's truly not rocket science. And I'm a big believer in not just trying to go through the trials and tribulations of people who have been there and done that. Okay, how do you do what you do? Create a roadmap for me, and I just stick to that.
And with Kelowna being such a lifestyle-based city, you've got lakes, you've got wineries, you've got golf courses. What's your favorite part about living up in Kelowna? What do you do when you're outside of the office and you're off for the day? What's your favorite part?
That's a tough one. All of it, I would say. That's really why I love Kelowna, is the lifestyle component. As we mentioned, I've lived in Calgary for a year, Boston. I lived in Vernon for 3 years playing hockey there, and it's to have a place like Kelowna where I can go 30 minutes in any direction, and I can go to the world-class golf courses, world-class wineries, skiing at Big White, boating on the lake. Like, it's just endless of the things that you do. So, with the big shift in working remote, I think that's what's highlighted or been the huge push to migrate to Kelowna, is because people come here for the summer, typically, as you guys mentioned, fall in love with it. They've always wanted to be here, to move here, to relocate, but they haven't had the ability or accessibility to remote work, which has been the huge shift, obviously, through COVID, which is predominantly most of our buyers who are coming from out east or Lower Mainland. Now that they have that flexibility and they have that push or that shove to have a better lifestyle, that's been the huge push for everybody here. So for me, it's honestly all of the above. Like, I'm a big snowmobiler in the winter too. So to have Revelstoke 2 hours away and be able to have world-class sledding, and then the summers to, finish up work or even be working on the golf course in the afternoon, like, it's tough to beat that.
I guess, yeah, it's hard to pick one out of all those. We're going to wrap it up here. One final question. Highlight of your summer, either something that's happened or something that you're looking forward to in kind of the second half of summer here.
Highlight thus far would be my girlfriend and I did a road trip down the Oregon coast. We were about 2 weeks, and our end stop, being a golfer, I love golf. We stopped at Bandon Dunes, and we're lucky enough to play down there, which was absolutely amazing. The second half of I guess that's two parts. The second half that I'm looking forward to for the summer is this renovation that we're about to take on. My girlfriend hasn't done one yet, and I think she thinks it's going to be fun and exciting. So I'm excited to Sure, it's going to be a little bit more stressful than you think, but I've gone through it a few times, so I'm happy and excited to work through that.
Fun. Well, looking forward to seeing the before and after photos, and looking forward to continuing our next conversation over a beer at King Taps here soon.
Sounds like a plan.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this today. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Cheers.